Emma had always believed she had everything she wanted. Married to James, a caring and successful architect, living in a cozy suburban Chicago home, she seemed to have the perfect life. Friends admired her, weekends were filled with laughter, and she had stability most people only dreamed of. But lately, there was a quiet ache in her heart she couldn't ignore. She loved James deeply, and he was attentive, thoughtful, and patient. Yet Emma felt an emptiness she couldn't name, a whisper inside that hinted life had more to offer than predictable comfort. On one rainy evening, while attending a friend's art exhibition downtown, she met Daniel, a photographer from New York who had an easy charm and a gaze that seemed to see right into her. Their first encounter was innocent, a brief chat about a painting, shared smiles, and polite compliments. Yet there was an undeniable spark that Emma tried to dismiss as nothing. As she walked through the gallery, she noticed how effortlessly Daniel engaged with others, how passionate he was when discussing his work, and how he listened with real interest whenever she spoke. Something about the way he noticed small details, her favorite color, the book she held under her arm, the way she tilted her head when she laughed, made her feel visible in a way she hadn't felt in years. She left the exhibition with her mind racing, heart fluttering, and a strange warmth lingering in her chest, all while feeling guilty for feeling alive in a way she hadn't with James. Back at home, everything seemed the same. James greeted her with a hug, asking about her day, unaware of the storm quietly brewing inside her. Emma went through the motions, setting the table, making tea, laughing at James's jokes, but every smile felt tinged with distraction, and every glance at him reminded her of the contrast between safety and excitement. She thought about Daniel constantly, how his voice lingered in her mind, how his laugh seemed to echo even when he wasn't around, how he seemed to understand her unspoken dreams. It wasn't just attraction, it was curiosity, longing, a yearning for a part of herself she had buried under years of routine and duty. Emma tried to rationalize her feelings, telling herself it was fleeting, harmless, just admiration for his art and personality. Yet, every text, every email from Daniel made her heart race, and the anticipation of their next encounter consumed her thoughts. She found herself wandering through the city streets alone, replaying their conversations, imagining what it would be like to talk to him for hours, to laugh freely without the weight of expectations. She questioned her own heart. Was it betrayal to feel this alive, this seen, or was it a natural desire for more, a craving that wasn't wrong, but human? That night, lying in bed next to James, Emma stared at the ceiling, heart heavy with confusion, caught between comfort and longing, safety and the unknown. Sleep eluded her as images of Daniel's smile and the way he had gently touched her hand flashed through her mind. She realized that something had shifted inside her permanently. The life she had, while perfect on the surface, could no longer satisfy the deeper parts of her soul. The next day, Emma found herself drifting to art galleries, cafes, and corners of the city where Daniel might be, feeling the thrill of possibility with every step and the ache of guilt with every thought of James. She began noticing details in her own life she had ignored, the way she daydreamed during conversations, the sudden longing for spontaneity, the desire to feel excitement alongside love. Emma felt torn, a mix of affection, loyalty, desire, and curiosity, a whirlwind of emotions she could neither name nor fully control. Every mundane task at home felt heavier, every laugh with James tinged with distraction, every glance at her phone a potential window to another world. She began to understand that human hearts are not simple, and that love can coexist with longing, that caring deeply for someone doesn't always fill every void. By the end of the week, Emma knew that she had crossed an invisible line. The spark with Daniel was no longer just a fleeting moment. It had planted a seed of curiosity and desire that demanded attention. She faced a choice she hadn't anticipated, the first of many she would have to make. To ignore the stirrings inside her and cling to the predictable life she had built, or to explore the connection that made her feel alive, risky as it might be. The realization was both frightening and exhilarating, and as she sat by the window that evening, watching the city lights shimmer on wet streets, she felt the undeniable truth that life, love, and happiness are far more complicated than appearances suggest. Emma's heart was awake, alert to possibility, yet burdened with guilt and fear, and she understood that nothing would ever feel the same again. That night, as James slept peacefully beside her, unaware of the emotional storm, Emma whispered to herself, a soft, trembling acknowledgement of what had begun. That sometimes loving one person fully isn't enough when your soul quietly craves more, and the journey to understanding that desire had just begun. In the weeks after the gallery, Emma found herself thinking about Daniel more often than she cared to admit, each memory lingering like a melody she couldn't forget. She told herself it was harmless curiosity at first, a fleeting interest in someone new, but the feelings grew stronger, more insistent, and harder to ignore. Every encounter with Daniel, even brief ones at coffee shops or local art shows, left her heart racing, her mind alive with thoughts she couldn't control. He noticed her in ways that James, for all his love and attentiveness, had stopped noticing. Not just the surface details, but the nuances, the tiny gestures and emotions she kept hidden from the world. When they talked, Daniel listened without judgment, asking questions that made her think about her dreams, her fears, and the parts of herself she had tucked away in the safe routines of her marriage. Their conversations often lingered long past the moment, drifting into hours of laughter, shared stories, and quiet, meaningful silences that left her feeling understood and seen in a way that was both thrilling and unsettling. Emma began feeling a pull she couldn't ignore, a magnetic connection that made her crave Daniel's presence without knowing exactly why. She felt alive in his company, her mind sharper, her emotions deeper, and her heart more open. Yet every interaction left her conflicted, torn between loyalty to James and the excitement of new feelings. One rainy afternoon, Daniel invited her to see the city from a rooftop, the skyline glittering with reflections of neon lights on wet streets, and Emma hesitated, aware of the thrill and danger of saying yes. She accepted, drawn by curiosity and the need to feel more than the comfortable predictability of her life. Standing beside him above the city, watching raindrops shimmer in the light, she felt a surge of emotion she couldn't name, a combination of longing, fear, and exhilaration. Daniel's voice was soft, sincere, and careful, and for the first time in weeks, Emma allowed herself to be completely vulnerable, sharing parts of her life and her heart she hadn't spoken aloud in years. He listened, really listened, and when he spoke, his words were thoughtful, acknowledging her feelings without pushing her, making her feel that the complicated emotions inside her were valid and understandable. The moment was electric but subtle, the kind of emotional connection that left a lasting impression, and Emma realized that her feelings for Daniel had shifted from admiration to something deeper, a yearning she hadn't expected to feel. Back at home, James remained kind and loving, yet every smile, every embrace now carried the weight of distraction. Emma found herself drifting, her thoughts constantly returning to Daniel, to the way he made her feel alive and understood, and she began noticing things about her own life she had overlooked, the small routines, the comfortable but predictable gestures of love, and the parts of herself she had set aside. Emma began keeping small secrets, delaying messages, inventing minor excuses to step out alone, all the while feeling guilty for betraying the trust of the man she truly loved. She hated the duplicity, hated the conflicting emotions, yet she couldn't deny the magnetic pull she felt toward Daniel, the way her heart responded to his attention, and the way her soul seemed to awaken when they spoke. One evening, after weeks of stolen moments and quiet longing, Daniel called her, voice soft, careful, almost hesitant. "Emma," he said, "I know this is complicated, but I can't ignore how I feel. I don't want to hurt you or anyone else, but I need to be honest about what's in my heart." Her chest tightened, and tears prickled her eyes as she realized he felt the same intensity she did, the same impossible mix of excitement and fear. She didn't want to hurt James, didn't want to destroy the life she had built, but she couldn't deny the truth of her emotions either. Each conversation with Daniel left her feeling both exhilarated and terrified, caught in a storm of longing, guilt, curiosity, and desire. She began wandering through city streets alone, replaying every glance, every laugh, every conversation, imagining what it would be like to spend hours with him, to share dreams and secrets without the barriers of her married life. The more she thought, the more she realized that life was far more complicated than she had imagined. Love, loyalty, and desire could coexist, but not without inner conflict. Emma's heart ached with the intensity of her emotions, the push and pull of two worlds, one safe, one thrilling, one familiar, one unknown. She began questioning herself constantly. Was it betrayal to feel this alive, or was it human to crave more than the life she had? Could love for James survive alongside the undeniable pull toward Daniel? She knew she couldn't share these feelings with James yet, not until she understood them herself. Every touch from James now felt both comforting and distant, every laugh both real and overshadowed by thoughts of Daniel. Emma began journaling secretly, scribbling thoughts she wouldn't voice aloud, admitting fears and desires to herself that she couldn't say to anyone else. The emotional intensity left her drained yet awake, her mind racing with possibilities, consequences, and what-ifs. One night, as she sat by her bedroom window watching the city lights flicker on wet streets, she realized the truth. Her heart had shifted, changed in ways she hadn't anticipated, and the connection with Daniel was no longer a fleeting spark. It was a fire that demanded attention. She knew she had to face difficult choices, to confront her desires and the realities of her life, but the thought of turning away from Daniel, from the thrill of feeling fully alive, filled her with both fear and sorrow. Emma understood with painful clarity that the journey ahead would not be simple. She would need to navigate love, loyalty, temptation, and honesty carefully. Her heart was tangled, and every day brought a new challenge, balancing the life she loved with the emotions that were impossible to ignore. She recognized that human desire could be complicated, that longing didn't necessarily mean betrayal, and that emotional connections could awaken dormant parts of herself she had long ignored. As she closed her journal that night, heart pounding, she realized she was at a turning point, standing on the edge of something thrilling and terrifying, a choice between the safety of the known and the excitement of the unknown. Emma felt both hope and fear, exhilaration and guilt, knowing that her life had shifted in subtle but irreversible ways. And in that quiet city night, as the rain continued to fall softly outside, she understood the undeniable truth. Some connections come once in a lifetime, and while the consequences of following them are uncertain, the heart rarely forgets what it truly desires. The weeks that followed would test her, challenge her, and force her to confront emotions she had never faced before, setting the stage for decisions that would shape her life, love, and understanding of herself forever. Emma's days became a blur of hidden emotions and silent battles, each moment with James tinged with the awareness of what her heart secretly craved. She loved James, she truly did, but the connection with Daniel had grown into something undeniable, a force that tugged at her soul and made ordinary life feel heavy and dull in comparison. At home, James remained the kind, loving partner he had always been, oblivious to the storm building within his wife, continuing his routines with comforting predictability, yet Emma's mind was elsewhere, replaying every conversation, every laugh, every glance she had shared with Daniel. She tried to immerse herself in the life she had, to focus on their weekend plans, the meals they cooked together, and the subtle jokes that used to make her heart light. But each smile felt slightly hollow, each embrace slightly constrained, as if a layer of her true self had begun drifting away. She caught herself daydreaming during mundane tasks, imagining what it would be like to have a long conversation with Daniel, to explore the depth of their shared thoughts and feelings, and even to walk the city streets hand in hand, sharing secrets she hadn't spoken aloud in years. The conflict gnawed at her constantly, guilt and excitement, fear and longing, desire and loyalty tangled together in a way she couldn't unravel. Her mind kept questioning her own morality. Was it wrong to feel alive in someone else's presence when she still loved James? Was she betraying the man who had given her safety, stability, and years of devoted love? Or was she simply acknowledging a part of herself that had been dormant for too long? Emma began keeping small, careful secrets, lying about minor errands, delaying texts, and taking quiet walks alone under the pretense of reflection, each choice weighing heavily on her conscience, while simultaneously feeding the need to feel more alive. The pull toward Daniel became almost magnetic. The way he listened, truly listened, to her thoughts and worries, made her feel understood in a way that transcended the superficial layers of daily life. He didn't rush her, didn't demand anything, yet every word, every smile, every thoughtful gesture created a tension she could neither dismiss nor fully embrace. One rainy afternoon, she met him at a small cafe tucked between old bookstores, and the moment they locked eyes, she felt her pulse quicken, the world narrowing to the quiet space between them. They spoke about everything and nothing, from dreams and regrets to art and fleeting moments of happiness, and Emma realized she had begun craving these encounters with a hunger that was frightening in its intensity. Daniel's presence was like a mirror, reflecting back the parts of herself she had buried under years of routine and comfort. And for the first time, she felt fully alive, fully awake, fully human in a way that had nothing to do with physicality and everything to do with emotional connection. Yet every moment she spent with him made the return home more painful. Each shared laugh replaced by the heavy weight of guilt, each smile remembered in contrast to the quiet stability of James's devotion. One evening, Daniel called her, his voice low and careful, almost hesitant. "Emma," he said, "I know this is complicated. I care about you, but I can't ignore what I feel. I don't want to hurt you or James, but I need you to know the truth about my heart." The intensity of his words struck her like lightning, and tears welled in her eyes as she realized he felt the same storm she did. Their bond was not casual or shallow. It was deep, consuming, and undeniable, a connection that pulled at her very essence. That night, Emma wandered through the city streets alone, rain soaking her hair, heart aching with longing and fear. She replayed every memory of Daniel, every nuance of his gaze, every word that had lingered in her mind, and felt herself pulled between two worlds, one of safety, loyalty, and familiarity, and the other of excitement, emotional intimacy, and self-discovery. She realized the life she had with James, while filled with love, could not satisfy the emotional hunger that Daniel had awakened, and that the choice before her was not simple or easy. The weeks became a delicate balancing act, navigating the thin line between loyalty and desire, between honesty and secrecy. Each interaction with James was now layered with tension, a quiet awareness that her heart was partially elsewhere, even as she tried to honor the life they had built together. Emma began journaling obsessively, pouring out fears, confessions, and longings onto paper she hid from anyone else. She admitted the intensity of her emotions, the pull toward Daniel, the sense of exhilaration and danger that accompanied each encounter, and the growing fear that she might lose herself in this emotional maze. Yet alongside the fear was clarity. She could no longer ignore that her soul demanded more, that emotional fulfillment was not a betrayal but a human need, and that love for James and desire for Daniel could coexist in her mind even if they could not coexist in reality. One night, after a particularly long conversation with Daniel over the phone, Emma felt the tension reach a breaking point. She realized she could not continue living in this suspended state of guilt and longing without facing the truth, both to herself and to James. She sat by the bedroom window, city lights reflecting in her eyes, thinking about the years she had spent in comfort, the love she had known, and the life she had built, and she felt a pang of sorrow for the inevitability of change. She understood that what she was experiencing was not a simple affair, not a casual infatuation, but a profound emotional awakening that demanded attention and honest choices. Emma wrestled with fear, guilt, and anticipation simultaneously, realizing that her journey would not be about betrayal or wrongdoing, but about understanding her own heart, acknowledging desires, and navigating the delicate balance between duty and self-discovery. She imagined the conversation she would eventually have with James, the questions, the confusion, the heartbreak, and the possibility that honesty might not destroy love but transform it. Every step forward seemed perilous, every moment with Daniel intoxicating yet laden with consequences, and Emma felt both the thrill and terror of being caught between two worlds. Her life, once predictable, was now a whirlwind of emotions, each day a test of patience, judgment, and courage. She recognized the truth she had been avoiding. Emotional connections can awaken dormant parts of the soul. Longings do not always fit neatly into morality, and human hearts are capable of holding love, loyalty, and desire at the same time. As the nights grew longer and the city quieter, Emma realized that the choices ahead would shape not just her relationships, but her understanding of herself, her capacity for love, and her courage to face uncomfortable truths. She felt the tension of the unknown pressing against her chest, yet also the quiet exhilaration of awakening, of feeling alive, of acknowledging her emotional reality. Emma knew that the coming days would demand honesty, reflection, and perhaps difficult sacrifices, but she was determined to face them with clarity, to honor her emotions while being mindful of the lives intertwined with her own. And as she walked alone through the rain-soaked streets, the memory of Daniel's gaze and the warmth of his words lingering in her mind, She understood that life rarely offers simple answers, that love is rarely uncomplicated, and that the human heart often carries storms that must be faced before peace can be found. That night, as she returned home, the city quiet and her own thoughts loud, Emma realized that her heart had reached a tipping point. She could no longer ignore the truth, the depth of her emotions, or the inevitability that choices would need to be made, and she braced herself for the difficult, emotional path ahead, knowing that love, longing, and honesty were all intertwined in ways that would forever change her life. Emma had reached the moment she had been dreading and anticipating at the same time, the point where she could no longer hide her truth from James, where the tension, longing, and conflict inside her demanded to be acknowledged. She waited until the evening, when the house was quiet, and the soft glow of the lamps filled the rooms with a calm she had not felt in weeks. Her hands trembled as she sat across from James at the kitchen table, the familiar hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic outside accentuating the silence between them. She had rehearsed the words over and over in her mind, yet when she finally looked into his eyes, she realized no preparation could make this easy. "James," she began, her voice shaking but determined, "there's something I need to tell you. I feel like I need more than what we have, and I don't know how to explain it without hurting you." James froze, confusion and concern crossing his face, his hand reaching instinctively toward hers, and Emma felt a pang of guilt and sorrow at the thought of causing him pain. "More?" he asked softly, carefully, not wanting to push, but unable to hide the tremor in his voice. Emma swallowed hard, tears prickling her eyes, and spoke about the emotional connection she had formed with Daniel, not in a way that was physical or inappropriate, but honestly and openly, describing the awakening, the longing, the way it made her feel alive and seen in ways that hadn't existed for years. She explained how this connection had stirred parts of her she hadn't realized were dormant, and how it forced her to confront feelings she could no longer ignore. James listened in silence, his expression a mixture of shock, pain, and deep reflection, as if the very ground beneath him had shifted. He loved her. He always had, but this revelation introduced a reality he had never anticipated, a fracture in the life they had built together. Emma watched him struggle with the words, the emotions, the implications, and she felt both sorrow and relief, knowing she had finally been honest, even though honesty carried its own heavy cost. They sat together for hours, the night stretching around them, sharing tears, memories, and confessions, each speaking and listening in turns, learning to navigate the complexity of human hearts. Emma realized that her feelings for Daniel were not about wanting to hurt James or escape their life, but about acknowledging a deeper need for emotional fulfillment, for being fully seen and understood, and that expressing this truth was not betrayal, but a step toward clarity for both of them. James admitted his own confusion, his fear of loss, and his hurt, but also his understanding that love can be multifaceted and that sometimes acknowledging desires doesn't mean failing. It means being brave enough to confront the truth. The conversation was raw, painful, and profoundly human as they explored the boundaries of love, trust, and forgiveness, questioning what it meant to be committed while still growing as individuals. Emma felt a mixture of relief and apprehension, realizing that this honesty, though difficult, was the only path to genuine healing and connection. Over the following days, they began a slow, deliberate process of rebuilding trust, redefining their relationship, and learning to communicate with a depth they had never practiced before. Emma distanced herself from Daniel, not out of fear or obligation, but to honor the choice she was making to confront her life with James and to focus on understanding what she truly needed. Each interaction with James became a step toward reconnecting, a chance to find shared meaning in simple gestures, laughter, and quiet moments that reminded her of the love they had cultivated over years. She realized that love was not about perfection or fulfillment in every moment, but about honesty, effort, and mutual respect, about allowing space for both growth and connection, and about facing challenges together even when emotions are messy and complicated. James, in turn, learned to listen more deeply, to notice the subtle ways Emma expressed herself, and to provide the emotional presence she craved, not as a replacement for the excitement of novelty, but as a demonstration of enduring love that could evolve with honesty and awareness. Emma and James discovered that emotional turbulence need not destroy relationships, that acknowledging desires does not negate love, and that the human heart is capable of healing, adapting, and finding balance even after unexpected awakenings. As weeks turned into months, they established routines that honored both stability and emotional openness, finding joy in shared experiences while also respecting the internal journeys that had been triggered by the connection with Daniel. Emma realized that needing more, wanting to feel fully alive, did not make her ungrateful or unloving. It made her human, aware of her own emotional landscape, and courageous enough to address it without deception. Together, she and James learned that love requires communication, vulnerability, and patience, and that rebuilding trust is not linear, but is filled with small victories, moments of insight, and mutual support. They laughed together again, cried together, and created new memories that were infused with a deeper understanding of themselves and each other. Emma felt a renewed sense of identity, no longer torn between guilt and desire, but grounded in self-awareness and commitment, while James discovered resilience, empathy, and the power of love that adapts rather than rigidly controls. And though Daniel remained a memory of emotional awakening, he became a reminder for Emma that life often challenges the heart, that longing is natural, and that growth sometimes comes from facing uncomfortable truths. In the quiet moments of their home, in the soft hum of daily life, Emma reflected on the journey she had taken, the confusion, the excitement, the fear, and ultimately the clarity, and realized that love, when paired with honesty and courage, can survive even the most difficult revelations. She understood that life and emotions are complex, that hearts can carry multiple layers of feeling, and that true love is not the absence of challenges, but the ability to navigate them with grace and understanding. As Emma and James held each other that night, the city lights twinkling through the windows, she felt a gentle hope, a sense of renewal, and the quiet joy of a relationship strengthened by honesty, introspection, and the bravery to confront emotions openly. The story ended not with dramatic confrontation or irreparable loss, but with the subtle, profound realization that human hearts are resilient, that love can endure when nurtured with truth, and that sometimes needing more does not mean loving less. It means learning to love with clarity, awareness, and courage, and that this awareness is the beginning of a deeper, more meaningful connection that neither time nor circumstance can easily undo.